bit over 3. Here's a question that might ruffle a few feathers. What if throwing every spare dollar at your HECS debt, the thing your parents have probably told you to do since the day you graduated, is actually one of the worst financial moves you can make? I know how that sounds. Debt is bad, paying it off is good. Simple as that. Except HECS was never really a normal debt, and now that the government has quietly wiped 20% off every outstanding balance in the country and rewritten the repayment rules, the maths behind that old advice has changed completely. Meet Chloe and Sam. They're both 23. They graduated from the same course at the same university with the exact same HECS-HELP debt. Same income, same job, same starting point. Chloe decides to smash her HECS debt as fast as humanly possible. Extra repayments, every spare dollar, debt-free is the goal. Sam does something completely different. He pays only what he's legally required to pay and invests the rest instead. Let's follow both of them for 20 years and find out who actually made the smarter call. First, a quick bit of context, because this genuinely changed for millions of people. The government applied a one-off 20% reduction to every outstanding HECS-HELP balance in the country, wiping out billions of dollars of student debt overnight, automatically with no forms and no applications required. On top of that, the repayment system itself got rebuilt. Under the old rules, once your income crossed a certain line, a percentage was applied to your entire income all at once. Under the new marginal system, you only pay on the income above the threshold, currently $67,000, which is a much fairer, gentler way of calculating what comes out of your pay. For Chloe and Sam, this means their original HECS debt of $30,000 has already been cut by 20%, down to $24,000 before either of them has made a single repayment. Both of them land graduate jobs earning $70,000 a year. And here's the important bit. Because compulsory repayments are automatically taken out through the tax system based on income, both of them have the exact same compulsory repayment happening whether they like it or not, about 15 cents for every dollar they earn above the $67,000 threshold. On $70,000, that works out to a bit under $450 a year, taken automatically. Neither of them can avoid that part. So the real decision isn't whether to repay HECS. It's what to do with the spare money on top of that. Chloe decides to put an extra $300 a month on top of her compulsory repayment straight onto her HECS balance. She wants it gone. Here's the thing about HECS debt that trips a lot of people up though. It doesn't sit still while you're not looking at it. Every year on the 1st of June, the balance gets indexed, adjusted upward, capped at whichever is lower, inflation or wage growth. For our example, let's assume that comes in at roughly 3% a year. On a $24,000 debt, that's about $700 a year just from indexation working against her. Combine her extra $300 a month with her compulsory repayment, and Chloe is knocking down her balance by a bit over $3,000 a year, after indexation eats its share. At that rate, she clears the entire $24,000 debt in about 7 years. 7 years of extra repayments, 7 years of feeling that number shrink every time she checks her MyGov account. And then, for the first time since university, Chloe owes nothing. Sam takes that same $300 a month and instead of putting it toward HECS, invests it into a low-cost index fund. His HECS debt, meanwhile, is left to do its own thing, just the compulsory repayment coming out through his tax return each year, roughly $450, fighting against roughly $700 of indexation, which means for the first several years, Sam's HECS balance barely moves. In some years, it might even tick up slightly before his income, and therefore his compulsory repayment, grows enough to properly outpace the indexation. It's not until his salary climbs well past the $70,000 mark, somewhere around year 15 or 16, that Sam's compulsory repayments alone are large enough to finally clear the debt completely without him ever making a single extra payment.
Meanwhile, that $300 a month has been sitting in the market the entire time, compounding at an assumed average return of 9% a year, uninterrupted, not touched once to make a HECS repayment. Let's pause at year 7, the moment Chloe becomes officially debt-free. Chloe has 0 HECS debt, genuinely nothing left. That's a real tangible achievement, and there's something to be said for the peace of mind that comes with it. Sam, at the same point, still owes roughly $22,000 on his HECS balance, barely lower than where he started, thanks to 7 years of indexation chipping away at his compulsory-only repayments. On paper, that looks like Sam has fallen badly behind.
But Sam also has something Chloe doesn't. 7 years of $300 a month invested and compounding at 9% has grown into a portfolio worth roughly $36,000. So even though Sam still has debt and Chloe doesn't, Sam's net position, his investments minus what he owes, is already surprisingly close to Chloe's. And from here, the story is about to shift even further in Sam's favor. Let's jump all the way to year 20. Chloe and Sam are both 43. Chloe cleared her HECS debt back in year 7. From that point on, with no more debt to chase, she starts putting her own $300 a month into the market instead for the remaining 13 years. At 9% average annual growth, that 13 years of investing has grown into a portfolio worth roughly $82,000. Sam, by contrast, finally cleared his HECS debt around year 16, purely through rising compulsory repayments. But he never stopped investing his $300 a month, not for a single year, across the full 20 years. At the same 9% average return, that portfolio has grown to roughly $184,000. So after 20 years, Sam, the bloke who let his HECS debt sit there and barely paid any attention to it, ends up with roughly $102,000 more in invested wealth than Chloe, the woman who did everything her parents told her to do. That gap is not small, and it comes down to one thing. Every extra dollar Chloe put toward HECS in those first 7 years was a dollar that wasn't compounding in the market. Before this turns into never pay extra on your HECS debt, let's slow down, because Sam's approach comes with real trade-offs Chloe never had to think about. When you apply for a home loan, lenders factor in your HECS repayments as an ongoing expense, which can genuinely reduce how much you're able to borrow. Chloe, debt-free from year 7, walked into a mortgage application with a cleaner picture and quite possibly a bigger borrowing capacity than Sam, who was still carrying a HECS balance well into his late 30s. There's also the simple human factor. A 9% average return is an assumption, not a guarantee. Markets have bad years, sometimes bad decades. HECS indexation, on the other hand, is capped by law at the lower of inflation or wage growth, so it can never run away from you the way an investment can lose value. Sam's strategy only wins if he actually sticks with it through the years when the market drops 20% and every instinct says to pull the money out. And there's the psychological side too. Some people genuinely can't relax with debt hanging over them, no matter how cheap that debt technically is. If carrying a HECS balance for 16 years would keep Chloe up at night, that stress has a cost too, even if it doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. So what's the real takeaway from Chloe and Sam? HECS debt, especially after this 20% cut, is about as close to cheap debt as you'll find. It charges no real interest, only indexation, capped at inflation or wage growth, whichever is lower. That makes it fundamentally different to a credit card or a car loan, and treating it the same way by rushing to pay it off ahead of everything else usually isn't the mathematically optimal choice. But usually optimal on a spreadsheet and right for your situation aren't always the same thing. If you're about to apply for a home loan and need every bit of borrowing power you can get, clearing HECS first might genuinely be worth more to you than the extra investment growth. And if debt of any size genuinely stresses you out, there's real value in being rid of it, even if the numbers say otherwise.
The maths favors Sam, but Chloe's choice wasn't wrong. It was just optimizing for something other than the biggest possible number 20 years from now. Chloe traded investment growth for certainty and peace of mind and got there years earlier. Sam traded the comfort of being debt-free for a much larger pile of money at the other end and had to sit with a shrinking, then growing debt balance for the better part of 2 decades to get it. Neither of them made a mistake. They just valued different things. And that's really the point worth taking away from the 20% HECS cut and the new repayment rules. The government just made the debt itself smaller and fairer, but it didn't answer the actual question everyone with a HECS balance is quietly asking. Pay it off or invest instead. The honest answer is that the numbers usually favor investing, especially now that the debt is smaller and the repayment thresholds are gentler. But your own borrowing plans, your own tolerance for carrying debt, and your own certainty about actually sticking to an investment plan for 20 straight years all matter just as much as the spreadsheet does. If this kind of breakdown helps you think through your own HECS balance, hit subscribe for more videos unpacking the logic behind the everyday money decisions Australians are actually making right now. And let me know in the comments, are you smashing your HECS debt or letting it ride and investing instead?